Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Riley McManus. Criminal charges have now been laid in connection to Tuesday's shooting on Ambrose Street that sent 2 people to hospital. The 3 young men from the Toronto area were taken into custody yesterday morning in Sault Ste. Marie after they fled the city on a Northland bus. Police said they were carrying loaded firearms. A pair of 18-year-olds, Jaden Bowen and Kayshawn Robertson, are both facing 2 counts of attempted murder. The third suspect, 20-year-old Isaiah Broomfield, is charged with accessory after the fact. All 3 accused appeared in court today and will remain in custody with further court dates. The 2 victims, a man and woman, are still in hospital today being treated for serious injuries. Following the disturbing announcement on Tuesday that 171 plausible graves have been identified at the former St. Mary's Residential School near Kenora, the chief of Wajishkaniggam is calling for more government help. Chief Chris Skeed wants the province and Ottawa to step up and support the ongoing investigation, along with the well-being of survivors and their families. Lee Noonan has more.
The process of uncovering the truth is very hard on the community, says Chief Chris Skeed, and a pathway to healing is needed.
Because the work just isn't going to stop in 3 years. We're going to need ongoing sustained funding because we're talking about mental health supports. We're talking about memorialization. We're talking about a whole gambit of things that are going to come out of this work.
Meanwhile, Ogichida Francis Kavanagh says all of Treaty 3 is mourning with Wajishkaniggam. Kavanagh says his own siblings were at St. Mary's and that throughout the region and beyond, there are people still wondering about relatives and friends who never came home from the Catholic institution.
Some survivors, I've heard, in talking with them, they had one of their best friends, one day just disappeared, never knew what happened, never to be seen again. And some of these survivors, they're still out there looking for their best friend.
Skeed says reaching out to survivors outside his community is one of the next steps for Wajishkaniggam. They will also be continuing to search in other areas with cadaver dogs once the weather allows. For him, listening to survivors and following an Anishinaabe protocol is essential to the process.
Bibika, you gotta take your time. You gotta get that information that's coming from our survivors because one discussion can lead into many more discussions.
Both Skeed and Kavanagh are concerned about the impact of this announcement on the mental health of their people and encourage anyone who's struggling to reach out to support workers. The National Indian Residential School Crisis Line is available for survivors and their family members at 1-866-0925-4419. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
NAN's Deputy Grand Chief is expressing concerns about Sylvie Haas' announcement to retire next week, just before the suspended police chief was scheduled to face a misconduct hearing. Anna Betty Achny-Penescom is questioning the process which allows Hoth to avoid potential punishment. Hoth was charged last year with discreditable conduct and deceit related to her actions regarding an internal investigation launched against Police Board member Georgianne Moroso. Hoth was suspended with pay in June, and she gave her letter of resignation on Tuesday, effective January 27th. City police have also been under fire in recent years for substandard death investigations involving Indigenous people, which are now being reinvestigated by outside police services. Achny-Penescom says she's very upset knowing Hoth won't be taking responsibility for her actions.
And to me, this is very disturbing. There has to be a process where she needs to be held accountable, and that applies to any other Thunder Bay Police Services as well. I represent the people that and the families who are part of this reinvestigation, many of those that are non-citizens. This is very upsetting.
Achny-Penescom has also called for the disbandment of the Thunder Bay Police Service and replacing it with another police agency. The trailer was released today for a highly anticipated documentary series called Thunder Bay, written and produced by Ryan McMahon. It's hoping to uncover the truth behind the numerous unexplained deaths of Indigenous people in our city.
So this is the intersection where she was hit with the trailer hitch.
He pulled out a 2x4. He smacked me around the back with it.
There was bruising on his face. They were trying to hide something.
It seemed like every other week, a new devastating story would emerge from Thunder Bay. Another young person has died.
McMahon previously released a popular podcast also called Thunder Bay, which focused on the city's high rates of homicides and hate crimes, along with the controversies regarding the local police force. This new TV series aims to discover the roots of systemic racism and violence against the Indigenous population. The 4-part docuseries will premiere on February 17th on the Crave streaming service. Use it or lose it. That's the message from the city regarding nearly a dozen local outdoor rinks. City officials say usage rates at many rinks have seen a significant decline over the past 5 years. And for residents living near the 11 sites on the watch list, they have 2 seasons to prove their rink should remain as is. Starting February 1st, all 39 outdoor rink locations will be visited by a third-party contractor who will collect data from the city by counting the number of people at the rinks, including skaters, people in change rooms, and spectators. Some rinks could go from being supervised to unsupervised, and 3 of the boarded rinks at Wilson Park, South High Street, and John Kushner Park could be replaced with skating ponds if usage numbers don't increase by 2024. Parks and Open Spaces Manager Corey Halverson says the study intends to help the city focus its resources on best maintaining the busiest rinks.
If we don't see improvements in those areas, as per our rink policy, administration would bring forward recommendations to downgrade or discontinue those sites, which allows us to reduce the number of overall sites and focus our maintenance on the remaining sites, or possibly consider other sites if there are some brought forward that may be high demand areas.
And to ensure the accuracy of the stats collected, no counts will be done when the temperature is below -15 Celsius, when rinks are snow-covered, or while they're being flooded. The Thunder Bay Public Library is searching for a head librarian. It's a newly named position as the library goes through what's being called a restructuring period. The library used to have one person serve as both CEO and chief librarian, but those roles were split up with the hiring of Richard Togman as library CEO last year. He's now looking to hire a head librarian. The successful candidate will oversee all branches and librarians in Thunder Bay, along with budgeting for books, hiring staff, and short and long-term planning. Togman says the feedback he's been hearing is that this restructuring was long overdue.
The Director of Systems and Director of Collection positions we found weren't delivering the benefits we would like to see from a structural and organizational chart perspective. So we're still in the works of the organizational restructuring. So it's not complete. It's still underway. This is just kind of the phase 1. And the way that those responsibilities will be distributed throughout the organization are partly related to the hiring of a new head librarian, but also dependent on the negotiations with the 2 unions and how we allocate responsibilities through the organization.
Togman goes on to say they're looking both internally and outside of the organization to find the right fit for the head librarian position. The Premier says he has a plan to fix the province's healthcare worker crunch. Doug Ford wants to open Ontario's borders to talents from across the country, but there's worries that his government's reputation may shut the doors on recruitment. Siobhan Morris explains.
The flock is okay.
To fill staffing gaps on healthcare's front line, Ontario is looking elsewhere. Legislation to be introduced next month
will allow Canadian healthcare workers that are registered or licensed in another province or territory to practice in Ontario immediately,
without having to register here.
We do not want to put barriers up if you want to live and work and have your family in the province of Ontario.
The Premier isn't offering bonuses or other incentives to entice staff from areas also struggling to keep them, only making a cross-Canada appeal.
If you've been thinking of making Ontario your new home, now's the time to make that move.
Not much of a pitch as far as New Democrats are concerned.
This is a government that is actually at this very moment taking healthcare workers to court to try to suppress their wages. So that doesn't sound like a great invitation to Ontario to me.
Nursing advocates say the plan will only work if something changes.
If the compensation becomes competitive and workloads become such that nurses will be able to deliver the excellence in care that they're eager to do.
Only then would nurses move and stay. The government says new legislation will also give hospitals more flexibility
by allowing nurses, paramedics, and others to work outside of their regular responsibilities or settings, as long as they have the knowledge, skills, and judgment to do so.
That worries an emergency doctor turned politician.
Means an increased risk of mistakes, less checks and balances.
Ford says the change could help deal with the surge in flu cases, but the government has not shared more detail.
And that was Siobhan Morris reporting. A big announcement today at Lakehead University as the LU Student Union gave back to the school in the form of a substantial donation.
1, 2, 3.
LUSU gifted Lakehead University with $300,000 to continue enhancing student affordability and experiences. The money was raised through the fees LUSU collects from students, which they use to invest in various services and infrastructures on campus. LUSU President Lahama Naeem says all students should have barrier-free access to education, regardless of their background and experience.
Our goal is always to try and give back to the students as much as we can, do whatever we can to make their experience here as easy as possible and make that transition to university and then out from university into the bigger world as easy as possible as well. So we truly are believers in instilling as many skills as we can, both inside and outside the classroom, and investing in the supports that would help, build those leaders for tomorrow.
We were just absolutely thrilled. All of our executive team were just over the moon to receive the news that LUSU was making this contribution. The best things always happen when people collaborate together, and we've had some just wonderful outcomes from collaboration, just like today's announcement.
Half of the donation will be used to create 10 student bursaries at Lakehead's Thunder Bay campus and 5 at their Orillia campus. The other $150,000 will fund student awards and renovations for new study spaces in the LU library. Well, Fiona, the mild temperatures continue and the sun is still hiding from us.
Yes, a lot of gray skies today and pretty much a repeat of yesterday. A low of -7, wind chills -13, a high of -5 and wind chills around -11. The only real difference between the 2 days was we had a little bit more wind from the northeast, 11 to 31 kilometers an hour. Now to the west, Fort Frances has been holding pretty steady. They're currently at -5. They've been ranging from -4 to -6. Wind chills currently sitting around -10. Under cloudy skies up into Kenora, they're at -6, -8 in Dryden and in Red Lake. Red Lake has actually had periods of light snow for most of the day, and temperatures started out about -10. They've been rising ever so slowly to about -8. Very little wind, very little wind chill to report. So we head eastward into Armstrong. They're at -10, -13 in Greenstone. Not a lot of snow. It's actually more just a few snow grains that have been falling in that portion of the region. And the wind's a little bit gustier. So right now that -13 is actually feeling like -21. But they've been holding steady at that for most of the day. Marathon currently at -10 at this hour, and Sault Ste. Marie sitting at -5. They've been holding steady around the -4, -5 range for most of the day. Wind chills are currently sitting at about -13, but they've had a lot of snow and blowing snow, and they are actually under a snowfall warning for tonight. Now here in the city of Thunder Bay, it's going to be almost seasonal. -18, wind chills -22, a lot of cloud and winds from the north. But the temperatures are expected to start to rise as we head into the weekend, and I'll have details on exactly how much later on in the news hour.
Thank you so much, Fiona. Well, actor Alec Baldwin has been charged in the fatal shooting back in 2021 on the movie set of Rust. We'll have all those details for you as your Thursday news hour continues.
Just because it's an accident doesn't mean that it's not criminal.